If I were a betting man, I'd bet dealing with hunger is one of the hardest parts for you when dieting. Not only is being hungry not fun, but it makes it harder to stick to the plan, and if you don't stick to the plan, you're probably not going to get the results you want. So in this video, I'm going to show you what you can do to lose the weight without being so dang hungry. Hey, this is Colin DeWaay. If you want to know everything there is to getting in the best shape of your life, start that process now by subscribing and click on that bell notification so you don't miss anything. All right, let's dive into things here, but make sure you stick around to the end of the video because I'm going to save what I consider to be the best for last, and this is something that almost nobody else is talking about, but in my opinion is the most helpful thing there is for dealing with hunger when you're in a fat loss phase. I also think it's important to stress that while we can do things to help minimize hunger, you're probably going to deal with some, right? It would be great if I could just say you're not going to have any hunger the entire time. Not very likely, but these strategies can certainly help it not be quite so bad and help you get the results you want. Now, if you're someone who thinks that you've basically been hungry your whole life and you just think it's part of who you are, my guess is you've probably never gone a very long time without dieting. When's the last time you went a year? 2 years, possibly even more, without going into a dieting phase. See, what happens is when you do a lot of dieting, your hunger hormones get all messed up. This is part of the self-defense mechanism against starvation. So if you're never giving your body a chance to recover and for your hunger hormones to get back to the place they're supposed to be, this is what makes you feel so hungry. So one of the keys to not being so hungry when you diet is to make sure you take plenty of time between dieting phases to get yourself in a good place. So not only are you in a good spot with your hunger hormones, but also your metabolism's firing along, you're in a better place mentally, and you can handle the cutting phase so much better. Because if you're already hungry when you're going into a dieting phase, it's only to get that much worse. So now that you are starting your cutting phase from a good position, the next best thing you can do to help with hunger is to make sure you're eating plenty of protein and plenty of fiber. These two things are fantastic for helping with hunger, and you actually have a hormone in your body called ghrelin. This is nicknamed the hunger hormone. When this hormone elevates, you feel more hungry, and what does protein and fiber do? It significantly reduces the hormone ghrelin. But it's not just the hormonal response, it's also the fact that it's just more filling through higher volume foods. If you look at the difference between like 75 calories of cashews versus 75 calories of, say, broccoli, there's a huge difference in volume in the amount of space that it's going to take up in your stomach, not to mention the fact that it's harder to digest, and this helps you feel full as well. So this is why eating clean is helpful in a dieting phase. It's not because these foods are magic and just make you burn fat. It's because it helps you feel full and therefore helps you keep your calories down, has a high thermic effect of food as well, and therefore helps you get better results. Now, we always have to think about sustainability. I'm not going to go on a big tangent about good foods versus bad foods and the sustainability of your diet in this video, but it is important because if you can't stick to the plan long term, you're not going to be able to sustain your results. But bottom line is, if you want to be less hungry, eating more protein and more fiber is going to significantly help. Now, before I go on to the next tip, kind of adding on to this is a great way to help if you are overly hungry, but you want to keep yourself from gaining too much and you want to settle. If you are in a position where you're feeling like you have a lot of cravings and you want to overeat, instead of eating a bunch of junk food here like you're probably feeling like doing, if you opt for higher protein, lower calorie foods like, say, egg whites or chicken breast or tuna or something like that, there's quite a bit of research starting to come out that eating over your normal calories through straight protein actually doesn't store as body fat, and there is a difference between cravings and hunger. I mean, yes, typically if you have cravings, you're probably hungry too, so they can be together. However, if you're in a position where you're just like, man, I just need to eat more, and then you think about, well, I just don't want to eat egg whites or I don't want to eat high protein, and if I have to eat those things, then it's not worth it. Well, then you need to check yourself because it's probably a craving over just hunger. And don't take that the wrong way, I get it, but realizing the difference between cravings and hunger is pretty important to keep you working towards your goals. Another thing you can look at changing is perhaps your meal frequency. This is something where the research is kind of split, whether more frequent meals or less frequent meals, if that makes a difference in terms of hunger. What I find is, however you normally eat, if you change that significantly, that tends to make you hungry. So if you usually eat 3 meals and you switch to 6 meals, that's probably going to make you more hungry. If you usually eat like 5 or 6 meals, but now you switch to 2 or 3, that might make you more hungry. So not changing things drastically can be a big thing. But also the big takeaway for me here is don't force yourself into some sort of eating schedule that you hear is optimal and must be done, especially if that's not how your normal hunger cues line up. What I mean by this is we often hear things like, well, breakfast is the most important meal of the day and you have to eat eat it. But if you're someone who's generally not hungry in the morning, but you're usually very hungry later at night, if you force yourself to eat a big meal in the morning because it's so important, well, you're still probably going to be hungry later in the day, and now you're going to get to the end of the day with very few calories when your body is the most hungry, and it's going to make it hard for you to keep your calories down. So work with your body's natural hunger signals, not against it. I promise you don't have to eat in the morning. You don't have to avoid eating at night. There's no magical time of the day. It's all about your total numbers, regardless of how you want to space it out. So if you like more of an intermittent fasting approach, if you like to eat lots of small meals throughout the day, whatever you like and whatever helps you feel full and satisfied, do that. Don't change it and make yourself more hungry because you think it's optimal. Also, make sure you're staying well hydrated. Drinking more water can oftentimes help with hunger signals, and you can also use things like diet drinks and bubbly beverages because they can kind of help fill your stomach up a little bit. Sometimes having those diet sodas can help satisfy some sweet cravings, and they can help you feel more full and keep calories down this way. And caffeinated beverages can help as well. Caffeine actually is an appetite suppressant, and that's typically what makes a fat burner a fat burner. It's not that it actually burns a bunch of fat, it's that it helps suppress your appetite, and why they're typically loaded with more caffeine. Some other things you can do is, well, just distract yourself with other things. A lot of times we sit around when we're bored and then we feel hungry. If you're doing something more productive, oftentimes you don't realize or don't remember that you were hungry. And this is why a lot of people, when they're sitting at home all the time, they have a tendency to overeat. But if you're super busy at work and you have a lot going on, it's because you're distracted with other things that have to be done. So keeping yourself busy can help. And also, don't lose weight too fast. This is key for a lot of reasons, not only hormonally, metabolically, making sure you don't lose too much muscle. But if you're losing weight too fast, yes, it's gonna mess up your hunger signals, but also it means you're eating less food, because the way you lose weight faster is by eating less calories and or expending more energy. So taking a more reasonable pace and not going too fast is gonna help with that. And now the thing that nobody talks about, the thing that I think is the most important part of not only feeling less hungry, but getting better results, and that is learning to sit with hunger and realizing just because you're hungry doesn't mean you have to eat. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm telling you, hunger goes away on its own. If you find yourself very hungry, if you just sit with it, it will go away on its own eventually. And this can be especially important because sometimes when you eat a meal, it's almost like eating is like the gateway drug, right? Like you might not even be that hungry, but then you eat a meal, and then by the time you're done with your meal, you're even more hungry than when you started, and you just want to keep eating. So if you plan out your meal ahead of time, eat what you had planned. If you find yourself very hungry after that meal, instead of continuing to eat because you're hungry, give yourself 30 minutes. And if after 30 minutes you're still hungry, then okay, you can have some more. Again, probably opt for higher protein, higher fiber foods. But most of the time, if you give your body that time to catch up, you're no longer hungry. And even if you aren't eating a meal and you find yourself hungry, I'm telling you, it goes away. It's not fun, but it does happen. And honestly, just accepting that hunger is a part of the process is oftentimes the very thing that helps you not feel so hungry. What I mean by that is, if you're trying to chase hunger all the time, if you're hungry and you're trying to do every little thing you can to make it go away, and you're like shoveling spinach in your mouth and eating sugar-free Jell-O and pickles and stuff like this, which they're all tools you can use, that's kind of like some bonus tips, things like that that are pretty much no calorie or very low calorie and filling, that can help. But it's like, it's always on your mind. You're constantly trying to get rid of this hunger, and you're thinking about it more, and the more you think about it, the more hungry you are. Whereas if you just say, I know hunger is part of the process, I need to accept this, it's almost like now it's not on your mind so much because you're just accepting that, and now all of a sudden you're not as hungry. Sounds crazy, I know, but I'm telling you, it works. But regardless, I think it's important to remember this. I think sometimes you may feel like, well, if I'm this hungry, something's wrong. I need to listen to my body, right? We hear that all the time, listen to my body. But if you listen to your body every time you're hungry, I promise you, you're never gonna get where you wanna be. So learn to sit with it, and everything will change. Now, like I said, this doesn't mean that you can't have any foods that you enjoy. And oftentimes you probably feel like, well, I have these trigger foods and I just have to avoid them completely. But honestly, oftentimes that just makes you want them even more. And when you do have them, it just triggers you to overeat on them because you want to get it all in while you can before your diet starts again tomorrow. And it's just a huge trap. So if you struggle with including trigger foods, I want you to check out this top video next, and I'll talk about some strategies you can take to start including these foods you like so you can reach your goals while including the foods you enjoy. And I'll see you next time.